Hey everybody, Blue here, and we're finally bringing you the deck profile of Kaiba's Virtual World deck. So, couple things to start off with. Like Joey and Yugi, Kaiba's deck was a variation of his Battle City deck. The variation is that in his Virtual World, he removed a lot of stuff like the XYZs and miscellaneous types and replaced them with dragons. So this deck is a lot more dragon heavy, despite Kaiba kind of giving you the dragon vibe with Lord of Dragons and the three blue eyes. This deck is mostly dragons, with a few other guys still thrown in there. Actually, some new ones that we haven't seen before. So we're gonna go through, and again, this should be a lot of the cards are gonna be familiar to everybody, like Blue Eyes in 3. Every Kaiba deck ever is going to have this. He never not uses 3 Blue Eyes. Again, still what he has from LC is he and Zanryu, Lajin. But again, with more dragons, Luster Dragon, number 2, it's now been corrected to, because the originally 2 dragons were called Luster Dragon. This is now Luster Dragon number 2, but this is the original Legacy of Darkness printing. And again, like I've been saying, a lot of the cards that were in the Virtual World were either from Labyrinth of Nightmare, which also had a lot of cards that from Battle City. There are Hunter's card like Strings, Lumis Numbra, and then Legacy of Darkness had a lot of the Virtual World cards as well, and including some for Tristan. But anyway, Vorse Raider kind of never really dropped Vorse Raider much once he got it, because that became his new beater just every time. Vorse Raider. Ancient Lamp, yeah, he has Legend, so Ancient Lamp goes with it. Cave Dragon, so 2000 attack, 100 defense, and Cave Dragon has got an interesting effect. Again, Legacy of Darkness cards are early era. That would have been the 6th pack in the TCG. And to have 4 stars in 2000 attack, 1, it cannot be normal summoned if there's another monster on the field, your field, but it can't attack if it's the only dragon monster on your field. So what you have to do is have no monsters. You can normal summon it, and then next turn summon another dragon, and then it can attack. So it's not impossible to use, of course. There's way harder cards to summon, but a little tricky to work around. But that came with the whole 4 stars 2000 attack. Now you have like Alexandrite Dragon, and it's 4 stars 2000, and no one cares. Cyberjar. So a card that comes and goes throughout a lot of the anime. It gets used by various people. I've always loved the effect of Cyberjar, because it just blows everything up. You each get 5 new cards, and you get new fields and some great stuff in your hand. So it really it moves the duel up a few turns. It kind of gives you a little bit of a reset. It's actually a rock type, despite being called Cyberjar, where it looks kind of machiney. Alright, new dragons. Different Dimension Dragon. Yeah. Actually, from Dark Crisis, also has a Necros. Is also, I don't know, I'm gonna, I'll leave it alone with the packs. But, so 5 stars, 1200, 1500. And this one does have some useful effects. First off, he's unaffected by spells and traps unless they target. So, Dark Hole, Trumps with Tribute, he's totally good for it. And he can't be destroyed by monsters with 1900 or less attack. So it's the inverse of, say, Obnoxious Celtic Guard, who's safe from 1900 or more. With 1200 attack, basically he can't be destroyed by anything between 1900 to 1200. Anything over that, and he's screwed. But, again, his effect can come and help handy. Giant Germ, 2. Kaiba only played 2. We could have added a 3rd because, this card does work in multiples. But seeing as how we had a good deck for Kaiba without duplicating um, much of really anything, and because he actually did play 2, we just left it at 2. Maybe it's something we look on later, but we're happy with it right now. It's 2, 1,000 to 100. It's, Fiend. Oh, and it does do damage though. So it's one of those it's a monster where it'll search itself out like we've seen before in decks, but it actually does some damage. So a little bit of a bonus in that one. Kaiser Seahorse. Made an appearance as a deck master, which just what everything Kaiba did, made it easier to summon, Blue Eyes. So again, Kaiba's deck does not have a deck master effect built into it, because he has enough cards to make a full deck of his on his own. And unlike the big five, Taya, Serenity, who we saw really only duel in this virtual world duel, more or less. Again, not excluding Taya's very small, duel in Duel's Kingdom, which is still a whole different format anyway. The point is, the characters who we've seen duel a lot, the main 3, Yugi, Kaiba, Joey, they had enough cards. We know how they play. We gave them complete decks. The smaller characters who need a bit of push, we threw in the deck master effects to help them. We understand this is a little bit inconsistent, and this is also the reason why we are not doing deck master effects in any of these duels, is simply because many of the decks have the effect built in already via spells or traps, and to play with a deck master effect while having a deck constructed that way would be too much and it'd be redundant. And we could always modify the decks, but the problem is with some characters, they would just be less than 40 card decks, and that's not really the route we'd like to take. So we hope, a lot of you are still enjoying the decks and our twists to incorporate the deck master effect into the deck itself. But I'm going to go back to Kaiser Seahorse, so, there's nothing really more to say about him. We've seen him enough times. Again, I'm not going to try to harp too much on stuff we've already seen a lot, like Lord of Dragons. Okay, yeah, we get it. You do dragon things. So here's a newer one, though. Possessed Dark Soul. So 3 stars, Dark Fiend, 1200, 800, and he has a pretty interesting effect that you can tribute him face up to take control of all level 3 or lower monsters that your opponent controls until they are destroyed or removed from the field. Which means you have them indefinitely. They don't go back to the end of the turn. They are yours until they, get squashed. But that can be definitely helpful, especially against his opponent Lecter, who does have monsters whose sword level is 3 or less. Or, other characters who do fit that requirement, although not too many have a lot of those lower levels. 4 tends to be the average. Or if you're Yugi, it's like 8, and they have to have a special summon requirement. Anyway, so nifty card. And next up, this is a favorite of mine. This is actually the original copy, by the way. I've held on to this forever because I love this monster. Slate Warrior. Really, really cool looking card. The art's, I think, is really awesome. It's very interesting looking dude. 1900, 400. A flip effect, and actually 2 interesting effects. The first, that when he's flipped, he gains 500 attack and defense. That will put him at 2400, 900. And if he's destroyed, the monster that destroyed him loses 500 attack and defense. So it's almost like, if you flip him, he gains attack. Also kind of has the Archune of Guildford thing where, you can knock down an opponent's monster. Granted, it has to be one that destroyed him as opposed to when you choose. But usually those are one and the same. Your opponent's big monster that destroyed your monster is the one you choose, because how else do you get over it? Spear Dragon. I love this card so much. Yeah, this is going with the whole Legacy of Darkness. That pack was awesome for Dragon support. Kaiba never played the big bad from that pack, Tyrant Dragon, so that's not in here. Most of the other dragons are. Spear Dragon, it's just 1900, 0. It's the Goblin Attack Force effect where he goes to defense mode after attacking, and he has piercing. So 1900 piercing is really, really good, of course, in anime games. So Spear Dragon is a great card for Kaiba to have. Spirit Ryu. 1,000, and it's got, another interesting effect. So basically the way this effect works is that you just discard a dragon during a damage step, you essentially double his attack, and, odds are you've gotten over whatever you're trying to get over, because 2,000 attack is hard to beat with, just any old monster. Of course, his opponent in the virtual world was Lecter, and Lecter has Lily, and that card's a lot of trouble. Alright, so moving on. Wicked Worm Beast, 1,400 attack, and what he does is that at the end of the turn, it goes back to your hand. So, really, you can always set him, of course, but not something that you really offers you a huge advantage as far as attack points, damage, life points, or anything like that. 1, 2, 3. Thunder Dragons, as always, classic Kaiba. Twin-headed behemoth. I love this monster so much. It's just one of those really cool dragons we got in that pack. And I know I keep saying it. I'm sorry. And he has the great effect that when he's destroyed, he can return, and that is really helpful. Of course, the problem is he returns with 1,000. Supposed to his original 1,500, 1,200. But still, if you can get him back for a tribute, that's what counts. And that's why he really comes in handy. His last monster is not a dragon. It's not something he really plays very often, the type. It's Vampire Lord. And Vampire Lord is definitely not a weak monster. 5 stars, gives you 2,000 attack, 1,500 defense. And I say that not so much in its attack sets, but its effects. He has 2 effects, and they're both really positive. His first effect is that when he inflicts damage, you declare monster, spell, or trap. So it's like animal, mineral, vegetable. But you pick one of those 3 types, your opponent has to discard one of those card types from their deck. So if you can keep him around a while and keep him doing damage, you can start to drain your opponent of cards that they are really going to want to draw. And also the second effect is if he's destroyed by an opponent's card effect, which is some problem because, as we've said a lot, there's not a huge amount of monster removal in anime decks. There's some, but it's not as prevalent as, advanced format competitive decks. But if he is destroyed by such means, he's special summoned back to your field on your next standby phase, because that's the zombie thing. If they don't go away, and a couple of them say, if they're destroyed under certain conditions by your opponent, they come back. So, Vampire Lord, rounding out his deck with a zombie, a really cool card that, Delta and I have always liked. On the spells, to go with his dragons, we can be a giant dragon, to return one to your hand, which he really has the Blue Eyes Hinzanryu, and Different Dimension Dragon. And then it's pretty much just Giant Trunade. Diffusion. Good, got it. Double Snare. Okay, so this card actually does help him against Lecter because it destroys monsters. It destroys cards that have the effect that negate trap cards' effects and destroys it. This is a card seen in a couple people's hands and whatnot throughout virtual worlds. It seems like it was a filler card in the anime that they used to they put in a couple people's decks, but we did throw into Kaiba's, we did throw into Joey's. It does, help in some cases. It's not totally completely useless, but it's not the greatest card. We almost have a filler in our decks because that's kind of how it was shown in the anime, which is a shame. We could have doubled up a card, but the thing is we wanted to avoid doubles of cards we didn't see as much really be played. But Double Snare, Heavy Storm, so like Yugi, and I don't remember if Kaiba also played it to clear obstacles, or he may have actually played it in his duel. But Yugi has it because he played it against obstacles in the virtual world itself, not in a duel. But not many people have Heavy Storm in the anime decks, because it's like, it's Heavy Storm. And cards like this were not super prevalent. Only Noah has Dark Hole, but the monster equivalent of Heavy Storm. Monster Reborn, Polymerization, Pot of Greed. So nothing really to say, comment on those. Ring of Defense, Shrink, and 1 Flute of Summoning Dragon, not 2 like Battle City, despite actually having more dragons in this deck. Kaiba. Onto the traps. Burst Breath. So even in this trap lineup, really you can see supporting his dragons. And Burst Breath actually can be quite helpful, especially with Cave Dragon, because you tribute 1 dragon type monster to destroy all face-up monsters on the field, so even yours, whose defense is less or equal to the attack of the tributed monster. So again, if you tribute your Cave Dragon, you destroy anything on the field whose defense is less than 2,000, which is going to be probably most of the monsters. And if your Cave Dragon was all you had, you don't lose anything, but that also means you have the monsters. But you both have the monsters, and that's kind of progress. Next up is Crush Card. Like Blue Eyes, Kaiba really doesn't go anywhere without Crush Card. It's his trump trap. It's the way he always, or oftentimes, broke through something in the anime with a super evil, very rare, very powerful Crush Card. Again, if you haven't seen other videos, we're putting these white stickers in the cards where we have an errata. And the errata in this is back to its original printed effect. Konami changed the effect of this to get it off the ban list, presumably, and get the card, more playable. The card had been put on the ban list because of its effect, so now it's a much more dumbed down version of what the original Crush Card was. But for anime games, we play with the original Crush Card effect. So this errata is back to the original effect. But what all this means is that when you're watching this duel, we're going to play the cards. The white sticker is something that we hope catches your eye, so you see and you can know white stickers are erratas. If you have our document open, you can see what the card does, and hopefully you guys can follow along a little bit better, because we know we're playing cards that have a certain effect in the TCG. It's printed that way on the card, and then we're using, usually it's anime effect, sometimes a modification of the anime effect to make it plausible, where the printed may have been too implausible for anime. But regardless, so Crush Card, he has a couple targets. There's no Saggy. He has the Giant Germs, and really Cyberjar if you were going to want to waste Cyberjar. But he has Vorce Raider and Longin with combination with Shrink, like Battle City. He can shrink those monsters to 9 and 950 attack and Crush Card that way. So the Shrink in there gives you more Crush Card targets, with the strategy you've seen before, but I'm throwing it back in there for anyone who may have missed it. But so that's Crush Card. Other than that, we all like a good Crush Card. Alright. Dragon's Rage. So again, more dragons. And it's a continuous trap that gives your dragons piercing, which Spirit Dragon already has. But now, you can get it out of Blue Eyes, and Blue Eyes has piercing. So it makes the dragons even more dangerous and lethal than they were to begin with. And now this is the card which ultimately caused Kaiba's downfall in his duel with Noah. If you don't remember, it's last turn, and this is a very interesting card. Also, kind of sort of banned. Alright, it's a mouthful. You activate on your opponent's turn when your life points are 1,000 or less. So this only works at the very end climax of the duel, when you are probably screwed and need a way out. you each pick a monster in your deck, and essentially they battle, and whoever's monster wins, that person wins the duel. The loser, whoever's monster gets destroyed, of course, then loses. So this is one of the cards that has a win condition built onto it. So regardless of life points, if you lose the battle, you lose the duel, no matter how many more life points your opponent has than you, or how many less you have. And that's what happened. It was because, nothing in Kaiba's deck was stronger than Shinado, and Kaiba lost. And then Yugi took over, but that's a whole different story. So that's it. Last turn, like super mucho powerful trap card. Negate attack, classic Kaiba. Ring of Destruction, also errated. Same reason as Crush card. The original printing had the anime effect on it, and then it got banned because it's too good. Then they changed the effect for it so that it's less good, and that's fine. We get why they do that. We're not trying to really debate, but at the same time, they have a card with the anime effect. And for players like us who have the anime, want the anime effects, it kind of is a thing. But anyway, so again, white sticker means it's errated, and in this case, it's just errated to its original printing. So if you have an original printing of the card, or one of the first one, any one of the ones before the effect changed, then it's fine. This happens to be a newer copy that has the newer effect. The last card in his deck, so also is of course the last trap card, is Soul Demolition. It's alright. You have to have a fiend on the field to activate it. It's a continuous trap card. And that by paying 500 life points, both you and your opponent can banish a monster in each other's graveyard. So it can be helpful if you want to get something out of your opponent's graveyard that you think they might bring back. But at the same time, only if you have a card that you don't want to get back. Otherwise, they'll let you do. So it's interesting. It has a condition in order to activate it, and then it has a cost to use the effect. But that's Soul Demolition. That's Kaiba's main deck. So again, more dragons, more dragon support. You get a couple of the same cards we know and love from Kaiba. So, and again, his two fusions are the same ones we've always seen, really. Blue's Ultimate Dragon, which was actually, this time, was played by Yugi. Because, I'll touch on it quickly. Kaiba duels Noah. Kaiba loses, like we said with last turn. Yugi runs over, challenges Noah using a mixture of Yugi's and Kaiba's cards. And what happens is Yugi draws Card of Sanctity. He draws 6 cards. 3 Blue Eyes, Polymerization, Defusion, and Quick Attack, because in the anime, fusions could not attack the same turn they were summoned, but Quick Attack allowed them to do so. So that card aside, he made Blue's Ultimate Dragon, had Blue's Ultimate attack Noah. Noah had a ton of life points. So Blue's Ultimate knocked down 4,500 of Noah's life points. Yugi defused it into 3 Blue Eyes, and 3 Blue Eyes wiped out Noah. And Noah lost, and because the board got mad, and awful, terrible things all happened inside a computer world. But it was interesting to see Kaiba's Big Trump Monster being played by Yugi. Payback or vengeance. I don't really know if vengeance is the right word, because Pharaoh's not really vengeful, but in attempt to get back at Noah for what happened to Kaiba, he pulls out Blue Eyes Ultimate. And then the last card is because of all the Thunder Dragons. Yeah, Twin Hat Thunder Dragon, whoop-de-doo. Okay. So this was Kaiba's Virtual World deck. We definitely wanted to make sure to finish out the Virtual World. For the most part, again, this is the last deck in the wave now. We've done all 5 decks. We've done all 5 duels. And now we said they were all going to be paired against their opponent from the Virtual World. So, Yugi, Gansley, Taya Crump, Joey Johnson, Serenity Nesbitt, and finally, we just saw Kaiba versus Lecter. But I'm sure you guys know Kaiba played a couple more people. So now that the debut duels against the Big Five opponent, those are over. This is the last deck profile. The next video we're going to do, which is still part of our big release of Virtual World, Brothers Showdown, Kaiba versus Noah. So stay tuned. That's going to be really cool. So we'll see which brother wins that duel. As always, like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more. Remember that tournament we have is coming up really soon. It'll take 16 of our decks from the anime. We're going to pair them up and do the duels. Also, don't forget, if you've seen the Deck Expo, then coming up in January is the next wave. It's Duel's Kingdom, so stay tuned for that. See you guys.